Hey guys, tonight we are standing at the edge of a digital forest. The year is 2009. The air is thick with the low hum of a desktop computer tower and the scent of late-night pizza. You're not out in the actual woods. You're somewhere much stranger, a place made of glowing pixels and dial-up ghosts. You're scrolling through a forum, a place called Something Awful, where the trees are threads of conversation and the wildlife is a bizarre collection of creative and sometimes unsettling minds. Your eyes, tired from the screen's glare, scan past photoshopped cats and strange inside jokes until they land on a competition. The challenge is simple. Take an ordinary photograph and digitally manipulate it to appear paranormal. It's all in good fun, a way to pass the time. But as you scroll, you feel a prickle on the back of your neck. Two black and white photos appear. They're grainy, allegedly from the 1980s. The first shows a group of children playing in a park. At first, you see nothing wrong. It looks like a forgotten family photo. But then, your eyes adjust to the shadows under a large tree, and you see it. A tall, impossibly thin figure in a black suit with arms that hang too long. And a face that is blank, utterly, terrifyingly blank. The second photo shows a playground on fire. Children are running in the foreground, their faces masks of panic. And there, standing calmly amidst the chaos, is the same figure, its silhouette stark against the smoke. You read the captions, hastily written lore about a creature that stalks children. A thing called the Slender Man. It's fake. You know it's fake. It's just a clever entry in a Photoshop contest by a user named Victor Surge. But the part of your brain that still fears the dark, the part that evolved to see predators in the swaying grass, doesn't care about logic. It sees a monster. And tonight, we're going to follow that monster out of the forum and into the real world. We're going to see how a ghost made of pixels can cast a very real shadow. In this world of digital folklore, you would probably not survive this. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. But only if you really enjoy what I am doing here. While you're at it, I'm always curious to see where you're all listening from. Go ahead and drop your city or country and the local time in the comments below. It's a nice way to feel connected in our little digital campfire here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for a soft humming background noise, and let's dive into tonight's journey together. You lean closer to the monitor, the warmth of the old CRT screen ghosting across your face. The creation of Slender Man feels like a pivotal moment, a kind of digital year zero for a new type of monster. Before this, ghost stories were things whispered around a campfire or passed down through generations. The tools for this new kind of myth-making are becoming accessible to everyone. The software used, Adobe Photoshop, had been around since 1988, created by the Knoll brothers, Thomas and John. Initially, it was a tool for professionals, for magazines and advertisers to perfect reality. But by 2009, it's in the hands of millions. A digital scalpel for dissecting and reassembling the world as we see it. You wonder if the Knoll brothers ever imagined their software would be used to birth nightmares. It's a bit like giving a caveman a flamethrower. The results are bound to be interesting, if not a little alarming. The genius of Victor Serge's creation wasn't just the image, but the context. He wrapped his creation in the comforting, scratchy blanket of found footage and historical documents. He created fake quotes from witnesses and fabricated newspaper clippings. It was a masterclass in building a world around a lie, making it feel textured and real. He wasn't the first to do this, of course. Photographic hoaxes are as old as photography itself. You think of the Cottingley fairies from 1917, where two young cousins in England used cardboard cutouts to convince the world, including Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of the hyperlogical Sherlock Holmes, that they were regularly playing with magical sprites in their garden. It seems so obvious now, but at the time, people wanted to believe. And that's the key, isn't it? A willingness to suspend disbelief. Historians debate whether the rapid spread of early hoaxes was due to genuine gullibility or a collective, unspoken agreement to play along with a good story. Perhaps it's a bit of both. You click away from the original forum thread and find that the creature has already escaped. It's multiplying. Other users are adding their own photos, their own stories. Slender Man is no longer the property of one person. He's an open-source monster, a collaborative nightmare. You see him lurking in the background of family vacation photos, his featureless face turned towards a child on a swing set. You read diary entries, allegedly written by his victims, detailing a growing paranoia, a sense of being constantly watched. Each new piece of evidence adds another layer to the myth. It's like watching a ghost being built in real time. The narrative is fluid, changing and adapting with each new contributor. Some stories say he has tentacles that sprout from his back. Others say he can teleport. Some say he drives his victims mad before he takes them. The rules aren't set, which makes him even more terrifying. He is whatever the darkest corner of the internet hive mind decides he is that day. You feel a strange mix of fear and excitement. This is something new. This isn't just a story being told. It's a story being lived, collectively, across thousands of screens, in thousands of darkened rooms, just like yours. The digital forest is growing thicker, its branches intertwining to form a canopy so dense that the light of reality is starting to struggle to get through. And somewhere in those deep, digital woods, a tall man in a suit is watching. You blink, and a few years have passed in the digital timeline. It's no longer 2009. The world has changed. Smartphones are everywhere, and the internet is no longer a place you visit via a screaming modem. It's a constant, silent presence in your pocket. The Slender Man is no longer a niche forum secret. He has crawled out of the Something Awful forums and has become a full-blown cultural phenomenon. You see his story evolve from still images into something more dynamic. You stumble upon a YouTube series called Marble Hornets, presented as a collection of raw footage from a student film project that went horribly wrong. You watch through your fingers as the characters are haunted by a relentless, silent figure they call the Operator. It's Slender Man, but with a new name and a deeper, more complex mythology. The shaky camera work, the distorted audio, the feeling of authentic, raw terrorites, intoxicating. It's the Blair Witch Project for the YouTube generation. From there, he leaps into video games. You find yourself navigating a dark, pixelated forest in the game Slender. The 8 pages, your only goal to collect cryptic notes before the creature finds you. The game is brutally simple, but effective. Your only tool is a weak flashlight, and the only warning you have of his approach is a rising static hiss that fills your headphones, a sound that becomes synonymous with pure panic. It feels like he's everywhere, a modern-day boogeyman tailored for the digital age. But it's still just a story, right? A fun, spooky game, a clever web series. It's all just pretend. You tell yourself this as you turn off the computer and try to sleep. And then the story collides with reality in the most horrific way possible. The year is 2014, and the place is Waukesha, Wisconsin. You read the news reports, and a cold dread washes over you. 2 12-year-old girls have lured their friend into the woods and attacked her, claiming they did it to appease the Slender Man. They believed he was real. They believed that by making a sacrifice, they would become his proxies and protect their families from his wrath. The line between fiction and reality. A line that seemed so clear and bright from the safety of your computer chair has been horrifically blurred. The digital ghost now has real-world consequences. A moral panic erupts, echoing panics of the past. Suddenly, news anchors are gravely discussing the dangers of creepypasta, the internet's term for these user-generated horror stories. Parents are warned to monitor their children's online activity. Slender Man is no longer a fun internet meme. He's a scapegoat, a symbol of the dark, unregulated corners of the web corrupting innocent minds. It's a familiar pattern. You think of the Salem witch trials of 1692, where a community gripped by fear and superstition, turned on itself, believing in spectral evidence and the devil's influence. The witches were a convenient explanation for inexplicable misfortunes. Now, Slender Man is the convenient explanation for the dark complexities of mental health and social isolation in the digital age. It's easier to blame the monster on the screen than to face the monsters within. This isn't even the first time a widely believed falsehood has caused a stir. You remember reading about the Great Moon Hoax of 1835, when a New York newspaper, The Sun, published a series of articles claiming that a famous astronomer had discovered life on the moon, including unicorns, beavers that walked on two legs, and winged humanoids. The stories were a complete fabrication intended to boost sales, but the public ate them up. People were fascinated, and, for a time, they believed. The difference is that the moon hoax was a top-down deception from a trusted institution. Slender Man was a bottom-up creation, a monster built by the masses, which makes the Waukesha incident all the more chilling. The story didn't come from an authority figure. It came from the collective imagination, a place that is supposed to be safe. Sociologists and historians debate whether moral panics are a genuine societal defense mechanism or simply a tool used by established powers to control new, disruptive technologies. From comic books in the 50s, supposedly causing juvenile delinquency, to Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s being linked to satanic cults. The pattern is the same. The older generation fears and misunderstands the culture of the younger. The internet is just the newest, biggest, and scariest cultural shift to grapple with. The fallout from the Waukesha case changes the Slender Man story forever. It's no longer just a spooky tale. It's tainted by real-world tragedy. The creators and fans of the myth are forced to confront the uncomfortable reality of what they VA made. The game is over. The fun has been drained out of it, replaced by a somber sense of responsibility. The digital campfire has been kicked over, and the embers have started a real fire in the woods. You feel a sense of loss. The creature, born from a simple Photoshop contest, has become something monstrous in a way its creator never intended. The story has been ripped from the hands of the storytellers and now belongs to the headlines. You close the news tab, the glow of the screen feeling colder than before. The abstract fear of a tall, faceless man in the woods has been replaced by the much more tangible, and therefore more terrifying, horror of what can happen when the stories we tell ourselves go wrong. The forest of the internet suddenly feels a lot darker, and you're not sure you want to go exploring anymore. You decide to step away from the anthropomorphic monsters for a moment. The horror of Slender Man was in what he could do to you. But you soon discover there's another kind of horror, one that's less about a creature and more about a place. You find yourself back on an anonymous image board. The kind of place that feels like the internet's messy, chaotic subconscious. It's 2019. You re-scrolling through a thread asking users to post disquieting images. Most are typical unsettling pictures, but then one catches your eye. It's a photograph taken from a slightly skewed angle. The image depicts an empty room, or perhaps a series of rooms bathed in a sickly, monochromatic yellow. The walls are covered in a drab, patterned wallpaper that you feel like you've seen before, but can't quite place. Maybe a doctor's waiting room from your childhood. The floor is a damp, stained carpet that looks unnervingly squishy. And overhead, the source of the relentless yellow light, buzzing, humming fluorescent fixtures that seem to stretch on into infinity. There is nothing overtly scary in the photo. There are no monsters, no blood, no jump scares. But you can't look away. It fills you with a profound and inexplicable sense of dread. It feels ... wrong. It feels like a place you shouldn't be. Then you read the caption, a short piece of text written by an anonymous user. It begins, if you're not careful and you knock-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum, humbug, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented, empty rooms to be trapped in. The text goes on to warn you that if you hear something wandering around nearby, it has surely heard you. The concept hits you like a ton of bricks. Knocklipping is a video game term for glitching through a solid wall, ending up in the unfinished, out-of-bounds area of the game world. The post has taken this digital concept and applied it to our own reality. What if you could just fall out of the world? And this is where you'd end up. An endless, empty, buzzing, yellow purgatory. This is the Backrooms. It's a masterpiece of minimalist horror. It taps into a fear that's more fundamental than being chased by a monster. It's the fear of being lost, the fear of being alone, the fear of a place that is utterly indifferent to your existence. It's the horror of liminality. You start thinking about liminal spaces in your own life. An empty school hallway during summer vacation, an airport terminal at 3 a.m., a deserted shopping mall after closing, a hotel corridor that seems just a little too long. These are places of transition, spaces that are meant to be passed through, not occupied. When you find them empty, they feel deeply unsettling, like a stage waiting for a play that will never begin. The back rooms is the ultimate liminal space, a place that is only transition with no entrance and no exit. You learn that the architectural style is reminiscent of the office spaces of the 1960s and 70s. This is no accident. You do a bit of digging and learn a fascinating historical fact. The office cubicle was invented in the 1960s by a designer named Robert Probst. His Action Office 2 system was intended to be liberating, giving workers privacy and the ability to customize their space. But corporations, seeking efficiency, stripped them down to the sterile, uniform gray boxes we know today, creating the very mazes that the backrooms seem to emulate. Probst himself later lamented that his creation had become a monolithic insanity. It's a perfect, if ironic, parallel. An idea meant for freedom becomes a symbol of confinement. Speaking of strange architecture, you are reminded of the Winchester Mystery House in California. It's a real-life mansion built by Sarah Winchester, heiress to the rifle fortune. For 38 years, from 1886 until her death, construction was continuous, 24 hours a day. The house is a sprawling, nonsensical labyrinth of stairs that lead to ceilings, doors that open onto solid walls, and windows that look into other rooms. The legend is that she built it to confuse the ghosts of everyone killed by Winchester rifles. It's a physical manifestation of a haunted mind, a real-life backroom. Architectural historians debate whether the unsettling nature of modern brutalist or minimalist design is an intended feature to inspire or an accidental byproduct of prioritizing function over human comfort. The backrooms seems to suggest it's the latter, taken to its terrifying extreme. This is what happens when you strip all humanity, all purpose, all art from a space. You're left with the buzzing of the light and the stink of the carpet. The original 4chan post is a self-contained work of art, but just like Slender Man, the idea is too good to remain contained. You watch as others begin to add to the lore. They imagine different levels of the backrooms. Level 0 is the mono-yellow maze from the original photo. But maybe if you find a glitch in the wall, you can fall into Level 1, a dark industrial complex of pipes and concrete. Or Level 2, a series of maintenance tunnels where the lights flicker menacingly. The simple, elegant horror of being lost and alone is slowly being replaced by a more gamified version of the universe, complete with strange, hostile entities that now inhabit these levels. It's a natural evolution, you suppose. We can't help but populate our voids. It's a fundamental human need to turn a landscape into a story, to put a monster in the dark. But for a moment, you just want to go back to that first image, that first post. The pure, undiluted horror of it. The simple, awful idea of tripping on a crack in the sidewalk and falling out of the world forever. You look around your own room at the familiar shapes and shadows. It feels solid. It feels real. But for a fleeting second, you wonder how thin the walls of reality truly are. The concept of the back rooms begins to spread like a stain on the damp yellow carpet. It mutates and expands far beyond the original 4chan post, becoming a vast, collaborative fiction project, much like its lanky, suited predecessor. You see it flourish on sites like Reddit and dedicated wikis, where thousands of users contribute their own ideas for new levels, entities, and survival guides. It's a fascinating exercise in world building. You read descriptions of hundreds of levels, each with its own unique and bizarre theme. Level 7 is a vast, dark ocean under a single fluorescent light. Level 94 is a vibrant, pixelated castle that looks like it's straight out of a children's storybook, but feels deeply, fundamentally wrong. There's even an entire level that's just an infinite suburban neighborhood with identical houses under a perpetually setting sun. The creativity is astounding. The one simple idea of an empty yellow office has become a sprawling, user-generated multiverse of surreal landscapes. The entities, too, have become more complex. You learn about smilers, which are disembodied, glowing grins that lurk in the dark. You read about hounds, which are vaguely canine creatures made of distorted flesh and bone. There are skin stealers, which can perfectly mimic humans. It's a veritable menagerie of nightmares. You can't help but feel that something has been lost in this expansion. The original horror was existential, the fear of solitude and meaninglessness. Now, it's more of a monster of a weak survival guide. It's more Dungeons and Dragons than the Twilight Zone. You find yourself thinking about a weird piece of trivia you once read. In the 16th century, European mapmakers would draw fantastical sea monsters in the unexplored regions of the ocean on their maps, often accompanied by the Latin phrase hic sunt dracones, here be dragons. It was a way of filling the void, of giving a name and a shape to the fear of the unknown. The Backrooms Wiki feels like a modern version of that, a digital cartography of a fictional abyss, complete with its own dragons. Then, in 2022, you see the Backrooms take its next evolutionary leap. You re-scrolling through YouTube when you come across a short video titled "The Backrooms Found Footage." You click on it, intrigued. The video is made by a then 16-year-old filmmaker named Kane Parsons, who goes by the username Kane Pixels, and it changes everything. The video is a masterpiece of found footage horror. It purports to be a VHS tape from 1996, documenting a young filmmaker accidentally not clipping out of reality while shooting a short film. What you watch for the next 9 minutes is a terrifyingly realistic journey through the yellow maze of Level 0. The shaky camera, the authentic VHS glitches, the muffled footsteps, the panicked breathing, it's all perfectly executed. Kane Pixels manages to recapture the original dread of that first 4chan post and amplify it. He understands that the horror isn't just about the place, but about the sound of the place. The oppressive, maddening hum of the lights is a constant presence. And then you see his version of a backrooms entity. It's not some overly designed CGI monster. It's a spindly, jerky, ink-black creature that moves in a way that feels unnatural and deeply disturbing. Its brief appearance is one of the most effective scares you've ever seen. The video goes viral. It currently has over 50 million views. Kane Pixels doesn't stop there. He begins to build out a complex, compelling narrative through a series of short films. He introduces a shadowy organization called a SINC, a research institution that, in the 1980s, accidentally opened a portal to the backrooms while trying to solve the world's storage problems. You learn that the backrooms is not a glitch, but a destination, a place that can be entered, and, more chillingly, a place from which things can emerge. This storyline grounds the myth in a new kind of reality, a sort of cold war, scientific hubris gone wrong narrative. It feels like a story from the X-Files or the video game Control. It's a brilliant move, giving the sprawling, chaotic lore of the wikis a focused, coherent, and deeply compelling central plot. You think about the history of science and exploration. What was to one group a new world full of promise and resources was to another an apocalypse, the end of their existing world. A SINC's discovery of the back rooms feels similar, a new frontier for them, a terrifying and destructive intrusion for us. The Kane Pixels series represents the maturation of the internet urban legend. It shows that these stories can be more than just spooky images and text posts. They can be high-quality cinematic experiences created by talented individuals outside of the traditional studio system. It's a democratization of filmmaking and storytelling. Historians debate whether the rise of user-generated content represents a true renaissance of creativity or dilution of professional artistic standards. Watching the Kane Pixels series, you're inclined to believe it's the former. This is a teenager with a computer creating something more compelling and frightening than many big-budget Hollywood horror films. You find it interesting that so many of these internet legends, from Slender Man's found photos to the backroom's found footage, rely on this aesthetic of authenticity. We seem to have a deep-seated need for our ghost stories to feel real, to be discovered rather than written. It blurs the line, makes the story feel more immediate, more dangerous. As you finish binging the series, you're left with a sense of awe. The journey of the backrooms. From a single, anonymous post on 4chan to a cinematic universe with millions of fans is a testament to the power of a good idea in the age of the internet. It's a story that belongs to everyone, and no one, a shared nightmare that we're all dreaming together. The mono-yellow hum feels like it's resonating in your own skull now. A low-frequency reminder of the strange empty places that lie just beneath the surface of our world. You decide to take a trip further back in time, before the age of forums and creepypasta, to an era of sticky arcade floors, the smell of cheap pizza, and the cacophony of 8-bit soundtracks. The year is 1981. You're in a dimly lit arcade in a suburb of Portland, Oregon. The air is electric with the sounds of Pac-Man chomping dots and Donkey Kong climbing girders. But in a dark corner, a new cabinet has appeared. It's sleek and black with no branding, no company logo. The only word on it is Polybius, written in a strange, futuristic font. You watch as kids line up to play. The game itself is hard to describe. It's a fast-paced shooter, but with strange, abstract graphics and mind-bending puzzles that seem to shift and change. It's addictive. Kids are obsessed with it, forming long lines, fighting for a turn. But then, you notice something strange is happening to the players. They complain of headaches, nausea, nightmares, amnesia. Some are seen crying, others become aggressive. They are hooked on the game, yet it seems to be making them sick. The urban legend of Polybius has begun. The story gets weirder. You hear whispers that men in black suits have been seen visiting the arcades, not to play, but to collect data from the machines. They ignore the other games, focusing only on the mysterious black Polybius cabinet. They take notes, talk in hushed tones, and then disappear. One day, as quickly as it appeared, the Polybius machine is gone. All of them, from all the arcades in the Portland area. They vanish without a trace, leaving behind a handful of traumatized kids and a mystery that will fester in the nascent online communities for decades to come. This story feels different from Slender Man or The Back Rooms. It's an analog legend for a digital age. It has all the hallmarks of a classic conspiracy theory. A perfect blend of Cold War paranoia, nascent video game culture, and fear of government overreach. You think about the historical context. The year 1981 was the height of the Cold War. People were genuinely afraid of secret government experiments, mind control, and subliminal messaging. It was the era of the Iran-Contra affair and a deep distrust of authority. The idea of the government using a video game to test psychological warfare on its own children didn't seem so far-fetched to some. In fact, you recall a real declassified government program called Macultra, which ran from the 1950s to the 70s. The CIA really did conduct mind control experiments on citizens, often without their consent, using methods like hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and psychoactive drugs. Compared to that, a weird video game doesn't sound so crazy. It's a prime example of how real historical anxieties can fuel fictional nightmares. The legend of Polybius is also tied to early anxieties about video games themselves. In the early 80s, video games were a new and somewhat scary phenomenon for parents and politicians. They were seen by some as addictive, time-wasting, and possibly even harmful. There were real news stories about kids suffering from repetitive strain, injuries, or even, in very rare cases, having seizures from photosensitive epilepsy. These legitimate health concerns provided fertile ground for a more sinister legend to grow. You find an obscure but fascinating tidbit. There was a real video game in 1982 called Cube Quest, which used a laserdisc player to generate its trippy, psychedelic backgrounds. It was notoriously prone to breaking down and being pulled from arcades for frequent maintenance. Some have theorized that the legend of Polybius might be a garbled memory of several real games, like Cube Quest, for its weird visuals, and Tempest, for its fast-paced, abstract gameplay combined with the general unreliability of early arcade hardware. Historians debate whether the Polybius legend was a genuine, localized rumor from 1981 that was later rediscovered by the internet, or if it was a complete fabrication. A retconned urban legend invented on Usenet forums in the late 1990s and backdated to sound more authentic. The lack of any physical evidence, no ROMs, no marketing materials from 1981 strongly suggests the latter. It seems to be a ghost story that was written long after the supposed haunting took place. And yet, the story persists. It's just too good. The Men in Black, the mysterious corporation, the mind-altering gay myths, the perfect recipe for a modern myth. The Men in Black trope itself is a fascinating piece of folklore. It didn't start with the Will Smith movie. The concept of mysterious, dark-suited government agents who intimidate UFO witnesses has been a staple of ufology since the 1950s. They represent the silencing of truth, the faceless authority that operates in the shadows. Placing them in an arcade, of all places, is a brilliant juxtaposition of the mundane and the sinister. You imagine yourself back in that arcade. You push past the other kids and put your quarter in the slot. The screen flickers to life with a blast of chaotic color and sound. The game starts and you're hooked. You feel your heart race, your pupils dilate. The world outside the game melts away. The code is doing something to your brain, rewriting your thoughts. You feel a headache coming on, a strange metallic taste in your mouth. You want to stop, but you can't. And then, out of the corner of your eye, you see them. Two men in identical black suits, standing by the change machine. They aren't watching the game. They're watching you. The legend of Polybius is a powerful reminder that we Dante need photo editing software or found footage to create a monster. Sometimes, all it takes is a good story planted in the fertile soil of our own paranoia. You step out of the noisy, imagined arcade of 1981 and into the quieter, more analytical space of the present day. The legend of Polybius, now decades old, has become a classic of internet folklore. A story told and retold across countless forums, blogs, and YouTube videos. But unlike Slender Man, which has a clear and documented origin, the genesis of Polybius remains tantalizingly murky, which has only added to its mystique. You decide to play detective and follow the digital breadcrumbs, trying to trace the story back to its source. The trail seems to lead back to a Usenet post from around 1998. Usenet, for those who might not remember, was a sort of precursor to modern internet forums, a global discussion system that was chaotic, text-based, and felt like the Wild West of the early web. The post mentioned a weird arcade game from Portland, and the story snowballed from there. In 2003, the story gets a major boost. A writer for GamePro magazine, a popular gaming publication at the time, mentions Polybius in a feature story about video game urban legends. This brings the story out of the niche corners of the internet and into a more mainstream consciousness. Suddenly, everyone who grew up in the 80s is trying to remember if they ever saw that strange black cabinet. The power of suggestion is a funny thing. People begin to remember playing it. They share hazy, contradictory memories of the game's addictive nature and its unsettling side effects. It's a textbook example of the Mandela effect, or what psychologists call confabulation, the brain's tendency to create false memories to fill in gaps in our knowledge. We want the story to be true, so our minds help it along. The investigation into Polybius has become a sort of cottage industry for internet sleuths. They've scoured old arcade flyers, business records from Portland, and newspaper archives from 1981. The result? Nothing. Absolutely zero contemporary evidence of a game called Polybius has ever been found. There are no photographs, no mentions. In local papers, no one from the robust Portland arcade scene of the time who can definitively say they saw it. The entire story appears to be a digital ghost. The lack of evidence, however, only seems to fuel the conspiracy theorists. They argue that, of course, there's no evidence. The government would have scrubbed it all, wouldn't they? This is the frustrating beauty of a good conspiracy theory. The absence of evidence becomes the evidence. But then, a strange twist occurs. In 2006, a man named Stephen Roach comes forward, claiming to have been one of the programmers who worked on Polybius. He tells a dramatic story about a South American company that hired him and other programmers to create a game with a new, radical type of graphics engine. He claims the game did indeed have psychoactive effects, but they were accidental, a byproduct of the intense visuals. He says the panic was real, and the men in black were agents from his own company, sent to quietly pull the machines before a lawsuit could happen. It's a compelling story that seems to explain everything. Then his story starts to fall apart under scrutiny. He can't provide any proof. His timeline is inconsistent, and many of his claims are outlandish. The consensus is that he was simply an opportunist, adding his own elaborate fanfiction to the growing legend. It's a reminder that a myth is a collaborative project, and sometimes people want to write themselves into the story. You think about the history of elaborate hoaxes. The Piltdown Man, discovered in 1912, was a fossil claimed to be the missing link between ape and man. It was celebrated by the scientific community for decades before it was exposed in 1953 as a deliberate fraud. A composite of a human skull and an orangutan jaw. For 40 years, a lie was accepted as fact because it was what people wanted to find. Polybius feels like the Piltdown Man of video games. In a strange turn of events, the legend has come full circle. While the original 1981 game almost certainly never existed, you can now play Polybius. Several modern game developers, inspired by the legend, have created their own interpretations of what the mythical game might have been like. The most famous version was created by Jeff Minter, a legendary designer known for his psychedelic, trippy arcade games. His Polybius, released for the PlayStation 4 and VR, is a frantic, exhilarating, and visually overwhelming tunnel shooter that perfectly captures the spirit of the legend. It's a game based on a myth that became a reality. It's a tangible object born from a ghost story. This is where the debate among folklorists comes in. Historians debate whether the modern recreations of Polybius legitimize the original legend, or simply commodify it, turning a spooky, cautionary tale into a marketable product. Is it a tribute, or is it just cashing in on a cool story? Perhaps it's both. The story of Polybius isn't really about a video game anymore. It's about memory, paranoia, and the way stories mutate and evolve in the digital age. It's about our collective fear of being manipulated by forces we can't see, whether it's the government, a corporation, or a piece of code. You wonder about the weirdest attempt to capitalize on a myth. You read about the Cottingley fairies again, and learn that in the 1990s, the 2 original cameras used to take the faked photos were sold at auction for over £1. The black arcade cabinet may never have existed, but the shadow it casts is long and very real. It sits in the corner of our collective imagination, humming quietly, its screen glowing with a game we've never played, but all seem to remember. And it will probably be there forever, waiting for the next quarter. You move forward in time again to a world that is hyper-connected, a world of instant messaging and viral challenges. The year is 2018. The platform is not a shadowy forum or a noisy arcade, but WhatsApp, the messaging app on your phone, a place you associate with family groups and emoji-filled chats. The legend you're about to encounter feels more personal, more invasive, because it arrives directly in your DMs. It starts with a phone number. A dare spreads among teenagers. Add this mysterious number to your contacts and message it. When you do, the contact's profile picture loads, and you feel a jolt of pure, primal revulsion. The image is of a grotesque sculpture. A woman's distorted, bug-eyed face is stretched into a horrifyingly wide, thin-lipped smile. Her hair is long and stringy, and her body appears to be that of a bird with scaly legs and talons. It's a haunting image, a perfect distillation of the uncanny valley. This is Momo. Once you message the number, the story goes, you are trapped. Momo begins to send you disturbing images and threats. She gives you a series of challenges, a set of escalating dares. They start innocently enough, like watching a scary movie at midnight, but they quickly become more dangerous, culminating in the final challenge, self-harm. If you refuse to play, Momo threatens to leak your personal information or harm your family, claiming to know everything about you. The Momo challenge spreads like wildfire across the globe. It's a classic chain letter, updated for the smartphone era. The story is terrifying for parents who see it as a direct threat to their children's safety. News reports pop up everywhere, from local stations to international broadcasters, breathlessly warning of this dangerous new suicide game that is targeting kids. Schools issue warnings, police departments post alerts on Facebook. A full-blown media frenzy ensues. The panic is palpable. You can feel the fear radiating from headlines and concerned social media posts. The story has all the elements of a perfect moral panic, a threat to children, the involvement of new technology that parents don't fully understand, and a terrifying, unforgettable face. But as you dig deeper, you find that the story, like so many others, begins to unravel. It turns out it has nothing to do with a suicide game. The sculpture is a real piece of art created by a Japanese special effects company called Link Factory. Its real name is Mother Bird, and it was displayed at a gallery in Tokyo in 2016. The artist, Keisuke Eso, was inspired by a Japanese ghost story about an ubum, the spirit of a woman who died in childbirth. The sculpture was never intended to be used this way. Its image was simply stolen and repurposed by online pranksters. Then you look for the victims. Despite the global panic and thousands of news reports, there are no confirmed cases of anyone actually being harmed as a direct result of the Momo challenge. Police departments that had issued warnings later retract them, stating there is no evidence of the game being a real, coordinated threat. It becomes clear that this isn't a widespread, sinister plot. It's a hoax, a collection of isolated pranks and scary stories that have been stitched together by media sensationalism and parental anxiety into the shape of a monster. The real danger wasn't Momo. It was the panic itself. You think about another time a piece of art caused a public scare. The premiere of the ballet, The Rite of Spring in Paris in 1913, is a famous example. Igor Stravinsky's jarring, dissonant music and Václav Nijinsky's unconventional, primal choreography were so shocking to the audience that a riot broke out in the theater. Art has always had the power to provoke and disturb. It's just that now a single piece of disturbing art can be seen by the entire world in an instant. Historians debate whether the media's role in reporting on such hoaxes is a public service that raises awareness or a form of irresponsible fear-mongering that amplifies the panic. In the case of Momo, it seems to be overwhelmingly the latter. The story was far more widespread than the actual challenge ever was. The news didn't just report on the panic, it created it. You also find a weirdly specific historical panic to compare it to. In 1836, a book called The Awful Disclosures of Maria Monk was published in the United States. It claimed to be a true account of a former nun who had escaped a convent in Montreal. And it was filled with lurid, fabricated stories of abuse and depravity committed by priests and nuns. The book was a massive bestseller and fueled a wave of intense anti-Catholic sentiment and paranoia, despite being thoroughly debunked. It shows how a single, powerful narrative, even a false one, can ignite widespread social panic. The Momo challenge is the Maria Monk of the WhatsApp age. The story is a fascinating case study in how our modern information ecosystem works. A prankster steals an image. They attach a scary story to it. The story gets shared in a few online groups. A local news outlet, hungry for clicks, picks it up. National news outlets see the story trending and report on it, often without proper fact-checking. And before you know it, a global phenomenon is born from nothing. It's a ghost summoned by algorithm and anxiety. You look at the picture of Mother Bird again. Now that you know the context, it looks different. It's still unsettling, but you see the artistry in it. You see the intention behind it. It's been stripped of its power. The monster has been unmasked. But you know that somewhere out there, another image is waiting. Another scary story is being cooked up. The digital campfire is still burning, and it's always hungry for new ghosts. You're still thinking about Momo, not about the hoax itself, but about the psychology behind it. Why was it so effective? What is it about that specific combination of image and story that pressed all the right buttons in our collective psyche? You realize the power of Momo lies in how it weaponized the very technology meant to connect us. A phone is an incredibly personal device. It's in our pockets, by our bedsides. It holds our photos, our private conversations, our secrets. The idea of a malevolent entity invading that personal space, using your own phone to threaten you, is deeply violating. It's a modern twist on the old horror trope of the call is coming from inside the house. Now, the house is your phone, and you carry it with you everywhere. The face of Momo itself is a key ingredient. Humans are hardwired to recognize and react to faces. We have a specific part of our brain, the fusiform gyrus, that is dedicated to facial recognition. The mother bird sculpture exploits this perfectly. The exaggerated features, the huge, bulging eyes, the unnaturally wide smile trigger an immediate and visceral response. It's the same reason clowns can be so terrifying to some people. They look almost human, but not quite right. This perversion of a familiar form plunges us into the uncanny valley, and our brain screams danger. It's a biological alarm bell that the hoax exploited with ruthless efficiency. The structure of the challenge is also a work of devious psychological manipulation. It uses a classic technique of escalation and commitment. The first few tasks are small, just enough to get you invested. Once you've completed a few, it becomes harder to back out. You've already committed, so you feel a psychological pressure to see it through. This, combined with the threats and blackmail, creates a powerful trap, especially for a younger, more impressionable mind. Of course, this was all theoretical, as the challenge wasn't a real, widespread phenomenon. But the story of the challenge was structured this way, which is what made the idea of it so terrifying to parents and authorities. The whole affair is a textbook case of what sociologists call social contagion. An idea or behavior spreads rapidly through a population, much like a virus. In the pre-internet era, social contagions happened, but they moved more slowly, passed by word of mouth or through newspapers. You might think of the dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg, where hundreds of people began to dance uncontrollably in the streets for days, with some allegedly dancing themselves to death. The exact cause is still debated, but mass psychogenic illness, a form of social contagion, is a leading theory. The internet acts as a massive accelerator for this process. A rumor that might have taken months to cross a country can now circumnavigate the globe in hours. Momo was a digital dancing plague, an epidemic of fear that spread from screen to screen. You think it's interesting how many of these legends are targeted at or are about children. Slender Man abducts children. The Momo Challenge targets them. You're about to explore a legend that supposedly made children physically ill. Why this focus? Perhaps it's because children represent our ultimate vulnerability. A threat to them is a threat to our future, to the most innocent part of ourselves. Stories that prey on this vulnerability are guaranteed to get a strong emotional reaction. They are, in a way, a form of emotional clickbait. Historians debate whether the modern concept of childhood as a protected, innocent state is a universal truth or a relatively recent invention of Western culture. In many historical societies, children were seen as miniature adults who were expected to work and contribute from a young age. Our intense modern focus on protecting childhood innocence might, ironically, make us more susceptible to panics like the Momo Challenge. We are so afraid of the world harming our children that we sometimes see monsters where there are none. You also find a strangely fitting, obscure fact. The term bug for a glitch in a computer system has a very literal origin. In 1947, engineers working on the Harvard Mark II computer found that it was malfunctioning. They investigated and found the source of the problem. A moth had gotten trapped in one of the relays. They taped the moth into their logbook with a note. First, actual. Case of bug being found. The Momo Challenge was like a bug in our social operating system, a piece of bad code that caused the system to panic and malfunction. It wasn't a hardware problem. It was a software problem. It was a ghost in the machine of our collective consciousness. The Momo panic eventually subsided, as all panics do. The media moved on to the next scare, and the creepy, bird-like face faded from the headlines. But the incident left a scar. It was a powerful demonstration of our vulnerability to digital disinformation and emotional manipulation. It showed how easily a lie can outrun the truth if it's scary enough. It was a warning shot, a reminder that in the hyper-connected world, the most dangerous monsters are not the ones that are real, but the ones we can be convinced to believe in. You decide to turn the clock back once more to the mid-1990s. The internet is still a niche hobby, and the primary source of digital entertainment for a generation of kids comes from a chunky, gray, handheld device with a monochrome screen. You're holding a brand new Nintendo Game Boy. The year is 1996, and you've just slotted in a copy of the new game that everyone is talking about, Pikmin Red. You're immediately captivated. The world of Kanto, the thrill of catching and training. Creatures, the epic journey to become a Pac-Man master. It's an obsession. You spent hours exploring every corner of the game world. The iconic 8-bit soundtrack burrowing its way deep into your brain. And collecting badges. But then you arrive at a place that feels different. It's a town called Lavender Town. And the moment you enter, the mood shifts. The cheerful, adventurous music that has accompanied your journey so far is gone. It's replaced by a high-pitched, eerie, and deeply unsettling Chipchen theme. It's discordant, sorrowful, and repetitive in a way that gets under your skin. The town itself is a giant graveyard, the Pac-Man Tower, where trainers come to mourn their deceased Pac-Man. The characters you talk to speak of ghosts and restless spirits. One of them asks you, "Do you believe in ghosts?" before disappearing. The whole place is a stark, surprisingly mature injection of grief and mortality into an otherwise upbeat children's game. It's creepy, but it's just part of the game. You navigate the tower, battle the ghosts, and move on. But years later, after the initial Pac-Man craze has faded and a new age of internet lore has dawned, you stumble upon a story, a creepypasta. It's called Lavender Town Syndrome. The story claims that shortly after the release of Pac-Man Red and Green, the original Japanese version in 1996, there was a spike in illnesses and, more disturbingly, suicides among children in Japan, specifically between the ages of 7 and 12. The alleged cause: the music of Lavender Town. The legend asserts that the original version of the theme music contained specific, high-frequency tones that were only audible to the developing ears of young children. These tones, the story goes, were psychologically disturbing, causing nausea, headaches, severe depression, and, in the most extreme cases, suicidal impulses. The story claims that Nintendo, upon discovering this, quickly and quietly changed the music for the Western release and subsequent Japanese printings of the game, covering up the entire incident. It's a terrifying thought. A beloved children's game, a source of so much joy, secretly containing a sound that could harm them. The legend of Lavender Town Syndrome is a perfect example of a creepypasta that builds upon a pre-existing, genuinely unsettling piece of media. The Lavender Town theme is creepy. Everyone who played the game remembers it. The legend just provides a sinister, supernatural explanation for why it's so creepy. It takes a shared nostalgic experience and injects it with a dose of horror. You think about the history of music and its supposed psychological effects. For centuries, people have believed that certain musical intervals have powerful properties. The tritone, for example, an interval of 3 whole tones, was known in the medieval period as the diabolus in musica, the devil in music. It was considered so dissonant and unsettling that its use was discouraged in sacred music. Lavender Town syndrome feels like a modern, technological version of the diabolus in musica, a digital devil hidden in the code of a Game Boy cartridge. The story is, of course, a complete fabrication. There is no evidence of any spike in youth suicides. In Japan in 1996, linked to the game, it's a work of fiction, but it's a particularly effective one because it blurs the line between a real, verifiable thing, the creepy music, and a fictional elaboration, the suicides. It also plays on our fears of technology's unseen influence. We are surrounded by signals and frequencies we can't perceive. Wi-Fi, radio waves, Bluetooth. The idea that one of these signals could be actively harmful is a potent modern fear. This isn't the first time Pac-Man has been at the center of a real health scare, which lends the fake story an air of plausibility. You remember hearing about the Deno Senshi Porygon incident in 1997. An episode of the Pac-Man anime in Japan featured a scene with rapidly flashing red and blue lights. This scene triggered seizures in hundreds of viewers across the country, a very real and widely reported case of photosensitive epilepsy. This real event makes the fictional story about the game's music seem just a little more believable. If the show could physically harm children, why not the game? Folklorists and historians debate whether the fear of new entertainment media harming children is a timeless parental anxiety or a specific feature of the post-industrial age, where technology evolves faster than our social understanding of it. From novels in the 18th century being blamed for corrupting the minds of young women, to the Pac-Man seizure incident, the pattern is remarkably consistent. You also unearth an odd, related piece of trivia: the fear of subliminal messaging. In the 1950s, a market researcher named James Vickery claimed he had increased sales of popcorn and soda at a movie theater by flashing the messages, "Eat popcorn and drink Coca-Cola" on the screen for fractions of a second, too fast for the conscious mind to notice. This created a huge public panic about mind control through advertising. Vickery later admitted that he had completely fabricated the experiment and its results. Lavender Town Syndrome is the subliminal messaging panic. For the video game generation, you go to YouTube and listen to the original 1996 Lavender Town theme. It's just as unsettling as you remember. That high-pitched drilling melody, the melancholic arpeggios. It doesn't make you feel sick, but it does make you feel sad. It's a surprisingly powerful piece of 8-bit composition. And for a moment, You let yourself believe the story. You imagine a child alone in their room, the world of Pac-Man, their only escape. Listening to this music over and over, not understanding why it's making them feel so strange, so hopeless. The legend may be fake, but the feeling it evokes is chillingly real. You find yourself falling deeper into the Lavender Town rabbit hole. The original creepypasta story was just the beginning. Like all successful internet legends, it has grown and evolved, with fans and amateur sleuths adding their own layers of evidence and analysis, trying to prove the unprovable. You navigate to websites and video essays that purport to have analyzed the audio of the original Japanese game. You see people running the Lavender Town theme through spectrogram software that visualizes sound frequencies. And this is where the legend gets really creative. The spectrograms reveal hidden images within the audio file. You see what appear to be the ghosts from the game, the Pac-Man Tower, and even the Unknown, a species of Pac-Man shaped like letters of the alphabet, spelling out messages like "Leave now." The most chilling alleged discovery is a faint, almost imperceptible image of the Grim Reaper embedded in the sound waves. It's a spooky party trick, of course, with enough manipulation and wishful thinking. You can find patterns in any random noise of phenomenon known as audio pareidolia. It's the sonic equivalent of seeing a face in the clouds. Yet, it's undeniably effective. It lends a veneer of scientific legitimacy to the ghost story. It's not just a feeling anymore, it's data. Then you come across the theory of binaural beats. The legend incorporates this real psychoacoustic phenomena to explain how the music supposedly affected children's brains. Binaural beats are an auditory illusion perceived when two different pure tone sine waves, both with frequencies lower than 1,500 Hz, with less than a 40 Hz difference between them, are presented to a listener dichotically, one through each ear. The listener perceives the auditory illusion of a third tone, in addition to the two pure tones presented to each ear. The legend of Lavender Town Syndrome claims that the original theme used specific binaural beats that would induce a state of extreme psychological distress in pre-adolescent listeners. This is, to be blunt, pseudo-scientific nonsense. While binaural beats are a real phenomenon and are used in meditation and relaxation apps with claims of inducing certain brainwave states, there is no scientific evidence that they can cause the severe symptoms described in the creepypasta. But it sounds plausible, doesn't it? It uses real scientific terms to build a convincing sounding explanation. This is a common tactic in modern folklore, laundering fiction through the language of science to make it more believable. You're reminded of the sound of space recordings, released by NASA. These are real recordings of electromagnetic vibrations from planets, translated into the range of human hearing. They are genuinely eerie and sound like something from a horror movie. The universe itself creates unsettling soundscapes. The Lavender Town legend simply suggests that this unsettling power was harnessed and put into a Game Boy game. The creepypasta itself becomes a kind of collaborative art project. Different versions of the story emerge, inventing a fictional developer at Game Freak, the company behind Paycan, who deliberately inserted the harmful frequencies as part of a twisted experiment. Others invent fake developer diaries or chat logs that prove the cover-up. The story becomes a shared universe, a sandbox for people to play in and add their own spooky details. It's a perfect example of how folklore operates in the digital age. There's no single authoritative version of the story. There are only variants, remixes, and adaptations. You find it fascinating to compare this to older forms of folklore. Think of the classic fairy tales collected by the Brothers Grimm in the 19th century. They didn't invent stories like Hansel and Gretel or Little Red Riding Hood. They collected and standardized pre-existing oral folk tales that had been told in hundreds of different variations for generations. The internet has just accelerated that process exponentially. A story can now evolve through thousands of variations in a matter of months, not centuries. Historians debate whether the digital medium, with its ability to instantly copy and modify text, is creating more diverse and creative folklore, or simply leading to a chaotic mess of low-quality, derivative stories. Looking at the sheer creativity surrounding the Lavender Town myth, from the audio analyses to the fan-made lost versions of the theme, you lean towards the former. You stumble upon a particularly weird piece of trivia related to sound and belief. In the late 1990s, a phenomenon known as the hum was reported in various places around the world, most famously in Taos, New Mexico. A small percentage of the population in these areas reported hearing a persistent and invasive low-frequency humming or buzzing sound with no apparent source. Extensive acoustic testing never identified the origin of the sound, leading to all sorts of theories, from secret military experiments to mass hysteria. The hum is a real-life Lavender Town syndrome, an auditory mystery that science has yet to fully explain. This real-world ambiguity makes the fictional video game story feel more plausible. You close the browser tabs filled with spectrograms and theories about binaural beats. The legend of Lavender Town syndrome isn't really about frequencies or hidden images. It's about the corruption of innocence. It takes a cherished childhood memory and twists it into something dark and dangerous. It's the digital equivalent of finding out your favorite kindly old uncle was actually a secret agent. It retroactively makes your own past feel unsafe, which is a uniquely disturbing form of horror. The 8-bit melody stays in your head, a simple, sad little tune that now carries the weight of 1,000 scary stories. You've explored monsters made of pixels, haunted places, and cursed sounds. Now, you're about to venture into a stranger, more abstract corner of internet folklore. You're not looking for a story with a beginning, middle, and end. Looking for a single, static image that can provoke a powerful, gut-level, emotional response without any context. You're looking for cursed images. The term itself is evocative. It suggests an object imbued with a malevolent force, something that brings bad luck or worse to those who view it. You find yourself scrolling through a Tumblr blog from around 2015, one of the first to popularize the concept. The images are a bizarre, chaotic collection of amateur photography. There's a photo of a man in a cow costume sitting in a bathtub, full of what looks like milk, staring blankly at the camera from behind the dead eyes of the mask. There's a picture of a cat, its face covered in flour, sitting at a table in front of a plate of pancakes, its eyes glowing in the camera's flash. There's a shot of a darkened room where the only thing visible is a row of Elmo dolls, all inexplicably gathered in front of a toilet. There is no explanation, no backstory. There is only the image. And you find yourself asking a series of questions for each one. Who took this picture? Why? What was happening just before and just after this moment? What is the story here? The images are cursed because they defy easy explanation. They are surreal, nonsensical, and often shot with poor lighting, a weird camera angle, or a startling flash that makes them feel accidental and raw. They short-circuit the part of your brain that tries to make sense of the world. The aesthetic of cursed images is a direct descendant of early 20th century art movements like Dadaism and Surrealism. You think of the work of artists like Marcel Duchamp, who, in 1917, it was a deliberate act of anti-art, a challenge to the very definition of what art could be. Cursed images are a form of digital Dadaism. They are often unintentional, found objects from the internet's vast, forgotten archives, old family photos uploaded to Flickr, strange items for sale on Craigslist, screen grabs from bizarre, low-budget videos. They are the opposite of the carefully curated, polished, and perfect images you see on Instagram. They are messy, confusing, and authentically weird. The uncanny valley, a concept you encountered with Momo, is also at play here, but in a different way. It's not just about things that look almost human. It's about situations that are almost normal. A person in a costume is normal. A bathtub is normal. But a person in a cow costume in a bathtub full of milk is deeply, fundamentally not normal. It's this slight, jarring deviation from reality that makes the images so effective. They take the familiar and twist it just enough to make it feel alien. You come across a fun, obscure fact about art history. The famous surrealist painter Salvador Dali used a technique he called the paranoiac critical method. He would induce hallucinatory states in himself through methods like staring at a fixed object until it began to transform, to access his subconscious and then paint the bizarre. Images he saw, cursed images, feel like a collective, accidental version of this method. They are glimpses into the shared subconscious of the internet, a place full of nonsensical and dreamlike scenes. As the trend grows, people start trying to define what makes an image truly cursed. It's not about being scary in a traditional horror sense. A picture of a ghost or a monster isn't a cursed image. It's too obvious. A cursed image is unsettling on a deeper, more existential level. It should evoke a sense of confusion, dread, and maybe even a strange kind of dark humor. You laugh at the picture of the Elmos by the toilet, but it's an uncomfortable laugh. Historians debate whether the appeal of cursed images and other forms of weird internet content is a form of rebellion against the increasingly commercialized and sanitized nature of the mainstream web, or simply a new manifestation of humanity's age-old fascination with the grotesque and absurd. Perhaps it's a bit of both. It feels like a return to a wilder, less predictable internet, the one you remember from the late 90s and early 2000s, before algorithms started curating your reality for you. You find yourself thinking about a much older tradition of strange images, the marginalia in medieval manuscripts, in the borders of beautifully illuminated Bibles and books of hours. Monks would often draw bizarre and sometimes profane little doodles. You can find knights fighting giant snails, monkeys playing bagpipes, and hybrid creatures that defy description. No one is entirely sure why they did this. Was it boredom? A form of subversive commentary? Simple humor? These medieval doodles are the original cursed images, nonsensical little interruptions in an otherwise serious and sacred text. Cursed images serve a similar function. They are an interruption in the endless scroll of polished selfies, vacation photos, and advertisements. They are a welcome blast of pure, unadulterated strangeness. They are a reminder that the world is a weirder place than your social media feed would have you believe. They don't tell a story, they demand one. They are a prompt, a question mark, and the story you invent to explain them is often more terrifying than the image itself. It's a dimly lit hallway. At the far end, a person in a cheap, store-bought Easter bunny costume is just standing there, motionless, watching. There's no threat, no action, but you feel a cold shiver run down your spine. Why are they there? How long have they been standing? There, you close the tab, but the image is stuck in your head. The curse is not in the file. It's in your mind. You're still pondering the bizarre power of a single, contextless image. What is it about these cursed images that makes them stick in our brains like a piece of mental Velcro? The psychological effect is a complex cocktail of emotions. Starts with pattern recognition. The human brain is a relentless pattern-matching machine. It's a survival trait. We see two dots and a line, and we instantly recognize it as a face. We see a long, thin shape in the grass, and we think snake. Cursed images disrupt this process. They present us with a scene that is recognizable but nonsensical. A dog driving a car. A room full of microwaves, all turned on and displaying. The same time, our brain tries to fit it into a known pattern or narrative and fails. This failure creates a feeling of cognitive dissonance, an unsettling mental static that is both frustrating and compelling. We can't categorize it, so we can't dismiss it. It lingers. The amateur quality of most cursed images is crucial to their effect. The harsh flash, the awkward composition, the grainy resolution, it all contributes to a feeling of authenticity. This isn't a professional photograph. This isn't staged for an art gallery. This feels like a real moment, captured by accident. It's a slice of someone else's bizarre reality. It's this perceived authenticity that makes them so potent. It feels less like looking at a picture and more like looking through a window into a world that operates by a different set of rules. This feels like a good time to bring back our favorite callback. You remember reading about ancient Egyptian beauty practices. They would use coal for eyeliner, which had the added benefit of deflecting the sun's glare, and they also used a form of sunscreen. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen, one of many ancient practices that seems utterly bizarre and nonsensical. To us now, a cursed image from history, in a way. The rise of cursed images is also inextricably linked to modern meme culture. As the trend became more popular, the definition of cursed began to soften. The term started to be used more broadly to describe anything that was just generally weird or cringeworthy. The truly unsettling, existentially dreadful images were joined by pictures of terrible food creations or awkward family photos. But then a new evolution occurred. People started creating blessed images as a direct response, pictures that evoked a feeling of peace, wholesomeness, and humor. A picture of a golden retriever smiling in a field of flowers. A photo of a capybara relaxing in a hot spring with a group of monkeys. They are the antidote to the cursed images, psychic poison. Then came blurred images, the holy grail of this new visual language in image that is simultaneously blessed and cursed. A picture of a dog wearing a tiny, perfectly tailored business suit might be blurred. It's wholesome, blessed, but also deeply strange and unnatural, cursed. This evolution from a simple concept into a complex system of classification is a hallmark of internet culture. We don't just experience things. We categorize them. We build rules around them. We turn them into a language. The history of language itself is filled with such processes. You think of the great vowel shift in English between the 14th and 18th centuries, where the pronunciation of long vowels slowly and systematically changed. It's a complex linguistic phenomenon that is still not fully understood. It's a reminder that language is not static. It's a living, evolving system. Meme culture is just a highly accelerated version of this process. Historians debate whether the rapid, meme-driven evolution of online communication is leading to a more sophisticated and nuanced form of expression, or simply a culture of disposable, context-free inside jokes. You find a fascinating, if slightly grim, historical parallel for our obsession with unsettling images. In the Victorian era, post-mortem photography was a common practice. Given the high rates of infant and child mortality, a photograph of a deceased loved one, often posed as if they were merely sleeping, might be the only image a family ever had of them. To our modern eyes, these photographs are deeply morbid and unsettling. But at the time, they were a cherished and normal way of processing grief. It's a powerful reminder that what we find cursed or unsettling is often culturally and historically specific. What will people 100 years from now think of our cursed images? Will they see them as a bizarre folk art movement, a symptom of societal anxiety, or just a bunch of weird pictures of cats? The power of a cursed image, ultimately, is that it bypasses our critical thinking and hits us right in the emotional core. It's a visual shortcut to a feeling of unease. It doesn't need a story because it forces you to create one yourself. Your brain, desperate to make sense of the nonsensical, will invent a narrative to explain the man in the cow costume or the bunny in the hallway. And the story your own mind creates, drawn from your own fears and anxieties, will always be more effective than any story someone else could tell you. It's a personalized, do-it-yourself horror story, delivered in a single frame. The scroll continues, an endless river of the strange and the surreal, and you are willingly swept along by. the current. You've seen how stories can be built around a single image, and how a single image can be a story in itself. Now, you're about to discover a project that takes this concept to its ultimate conclusion, a massive, collaborative universe built around the simple idea of cataloging the paranormal, the anomalous, and the downright bizarre. You have arrived at the SCP Foundation. Your first encounter is with a single file, a document from a meticulously organized database. It's labeled SCP-173. The document is written in a cold, detached, clinical tone, like a scientific report. It describes an object designated SCP-173 as a sculpture constructed from concrete and rebar with traces of spray paint. It is, the document states, extremely hostile. The object must be kept in a locked container at all times. Personnel entering the container must be in groups of no fewer than 3, and the door is to be re-locked behind them. Here is the crucial rule at all times. Direct eye contact must be maintained with SCP-173 by at least one person. Personnel assigned to enter the container are instructed to alert one another before blinking. You scroll down to the description. It explains that the object cannot move while within a direct line of sight. But the moment you blink, the moment you break eye contact for even a fraction of a second, it moves at incredible speed. It attacks by snapping the neck at the base of the skull. You see an accompanying photograph. It's a picture of a strange, vaguely humanoid, peanut-shaped sculpture. It's oddly proportioned with short, stubby limbs and a crudely painted face. But combined with the clinical, terrifying description of its behavior, the image is transformed. It becomes one of the most frightening things you've ever seen. This is the genius of the SAP Foundation. It's a fictional, top-secret organization dedicated to securing, containing, and protecting anomalous objects, entities, and phenomena that threaten the normalcy of the world. And the entire project is a collaborative writing wiki. Anyone can contribute as long as they adhere to the established format and quality standards. SCP-173 was the very first entry posted on 4chan back in 2007, and it set the template for everything that followed. The horror of the SCP Foundation comes from its writing style. The dry scientific tone makes the unbelievable seem plausible. It's a world of mundane bureaucracy tasked with managing cosmic horror. You imagine overworked researchers filing paperwork in triplicate for a creature that can eat memories, or maintenance crews complaining about having to clean the containment cell of a monster made of living shadow. This juxtaposition of the ordinary and the extraordinary is what makes it so compelling. You'll learn that the image used for SCP-173 is, in fact, a photograph of a real sculpture called Untitled 2004, created by Japanese artist Izumi Kato. The artist was not involved in the creation of the SCP entry and was reportedly not pleased with his work being used as the face of a monster. This raises interesting questions about art, appropriation, and the internet. The photo was taken out of its original context and given a new, terrifying one. And that new context has become far more famous than the original artwork. The SCP Foundation is, in essence, a massive exercise in creating cursed objects with backstories. It's a collection of thousands of cursed images, cursed sounds, and cursed ideas, all meticulously documented and cross-referenced. You think about historical attempts to catalog the world's knowledge. The Great Library of Alexandria, founded in the 3rd century BC, was an attempt to collect all the scrolls and books of the known world. It was a beacon of knowledge and learning in the ancient world. The SCP Foundation feels like a dark mirror. Of this, a library of Alexandria for things that man was not meant to know. Was a noble pursuit of knowledge or an act of intellectual arrogance that sought to strip the world of its mystery and wonder? The SCP Foundation seems to be a reaction to this, a project that says, no, the world is still full of mystery, and most of it wants to kill you. You discover a weird fact about a real-world attempt to catalog strange phenomena. In the 1970s, the U.S. government funded a project at the Stanford Research Institute to investigate psychic abilities like remote viewing, the supposed ability to see distant locations with your mind. The project, later codenamed Stargate, ran for 2 decades. While its results are highly controversial and widely considered to be pseudoscience, the fact remains that a government-funded, top-secret program to investigate the paranormal really existed. It's another case of reality being just as strange as fiction, providing a fertile ground for projects like the SCP Foundation to grow. You spend hours, then days, getting lost in the SCP Wiki. You read about SCP-087, a staircase that seems to descend endlessly, filled with the sounds of a crying child. You read about SCP-096, the Shy Guy, a tall, pale creature that becomes murderously enraged if anyone, anywhere, views its face. Whether in person, in a photograph, or even in a single pixel in a video. You read about SCP-682, a seemingly indestructible, hyperaggressive reptilian creature that hates all life. The creativity is boundless. It's a shared universe, more complex and detailed than many created by professional authors or movie studios. It is the ultimate digital campfire with thousands of people all adding their own logs to the blaze, telling their own stories of the things that lurk in the dark. And it all started with one creepy, peanut-shaped statue. You continue your deep dive into the SCP Foundation's universe, and you realize that its complexity goes far beyond just a list of spooky monsters. The community has developed a rich and detailed internal logic for its world. One of the most important concepts is the classification system. Every SCP object is assigned a class based on the difficulty of its containment. The three primary classes are Safe, Euclid, and Keter. Safe class objects are those that are well understood and can be contained easily. A coffee cup that refills itself with any liquid you think of might be safe. You just have to keep it in a box. But safe does not mean harmless. A button that would destroy the universe if pressed is also safe, because you can contain it by simply putting it in a room and not pressing it. Euclid class objects are those that are not well understood or are unpredictable. This is the default class for most new anomalies. A creature whose behavior you can't predict is Euclid, SCP-173. The sculpture is classified as Euclid because while its containment procedure is simple, just look at it. A simple failure, everyone blinking at once, can have immediate and dire consequences. Keter class objects are those that are extremely difficult or impossible to contain reliably. They often pose a significant threat to humanity. SCP-682, the indestructible reptile, is Keter because it is constantly trying to escape and is capable of adapting to almost any attempt to destroy or contain it. This classification system is a brilliant piece of world building. It provides a simple, at-a-glance threat level for each anomaly, and the names themselves, taken from the ancient Greek mathematician and a Jewish mystical text, add a sense of gravitas and history to the fiction. As the Foundation grew, so did its lore. You learn about the O5 Council, the anonymous, shadowy cabal of 13 individuals who have ultimate authority over the Foundation. You learn about mobile task forces, elite military units with cool calsigns like Nine-Tailed Fox and Red Right Hand, who are sent in to deal with containment breaches. You learn about groups of interest, other shadowy organizations that exist in the SCP universe, some hostile to the Foundation, like the Chaos Insurgency, and some with their own bizarre agendas, like Are We Cool Yet? A collective of anomalous artists who create deadly art installations. It's a testament to the power of collaborative fiction. No single author could have created a world this vast and intricate. It required the collective imagination of thousands of contributors, each adding their own small piece to the mosaic. You think about the construction of the great cathedrals of Europe in the Middle Ages. These massive structures often took centuries to build, with generations of anonymous craftsmen, stonemasons, and glass artists all contributing their life's work to a project they would never see completed. The SCP Foundation feels like a digital cathedral, a monument to our collective nightmares, built by an army of anonymous storytellers. The cultural impact of the Foundation has been immense. It has inspired countless fan works, video games like the popular SCP, Containment Breach, web series, and short films. It has seeped into the broader internet culture, with terms like redacted and containment breach becoming part of the online vernacular. It has achieved a level of mainstream recognition that few other internet-born legends have managed. You find a weird piece of trivia about a real-world containment project, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. It's a secure facility located on a remote Norwegian island deep inside the Arctic Circle. It's designed to store duplicates of seeds from every corner of the world to protect our agricultural biodiversity from global catastrophes. It is, in a very real sense, a facility to secure, contain, and protect the future of our food supply. It's the SCP Foundation, but for plants. It's a reminder that the impulse to catalog and preserve in the face of potential disaster is a very real and very human one. Historians debate whether large-scale collaborative projects like Wikipedia or the SCP Foundation are truly democratic and meritocratic, or if they inevitably develop their own hidden hierarchies and power structures that mimic the offline world. The SCP Wiki, with its strict moderation, quality control, and established senior members, suggests that even in the most open creative communities, some form of order and authority is necessary to prevent a descent into chaos. The SCP Foundation represents the maturation of the internet urban legend. It has evolved from a simple monster story into a complex, self-sustaining, fictional universe. It has created a framework where endless stories can be told. It's a machine for generating myths. Unlike Slender Man, which was tied to a single entity, the Foundation is a concept, a stage upon which any number of horrors can play out. This is why it has had such longevity. It can constantly reinvent itself. A new writer can come along with a new, brilliant idea for an anomaly, and as long as it fits the format, it can become a part of the canon. It is a living, breathing, ever-expanding nightmare. It's a testament to our enduring need for stories that explore the unknown. We may have mapped the entire globe, but the SCP Foundation gives us a new world to explore, a world of infinite, terrifying possibility hidden just out of sight. In the locked containers and redacted files of an organization that is forever, protecting us from the things that go bump in the night. You close the wiki, but the world feels different now. Every strange noise, every flickering light, every odd coincidence now makes you wonder. Is it just a normal occurrence, or is it an anomaly? Are you safe, or are you just living in a world that is temporarily contained? You have traveled through the dark forests of the digital world, from the birth of a suited monster in a forum, through the buzzing yellow halls of a cosmic mistake, and into the sterile, numbered archives of a secret organization. You've seen how stories can be born from a photoshopped image, a misremembered arcade game, a creepy sculpture, or a single bar of unsettling music. Now, as our journey comes to a close, you lean back in your chair and wonder about the bigger picture. Why do we do this? Why do we, as a species, have this unquenchable thirst for creating and sharing these legends, these digital ghosts? The answer, you realize, is as old as humanity itself. These internet urban legends are not a new phenomenon. They are simply the latest evolution of folklore, the modern equivalent of the stories our ancestors told around a crackling fire. That campfire has now become the cool blue glow of a screen, and the audience is no longer a small tribe, but a global village of billions. But the core function is the same: to explain the unexplainable, to warn of potential dangers, and to bind a community together through shared stories and shared fears. Slender Man is our boogeyman, a cautionary tale about not wandering too far into the woods, whether they are physical or digital. The Backrooms is our myth about the underworld, a frightening answer to the question of where you go when you slip through the cracks of reality. Polybius is a story about the poisoned apple, a warning against temptations that seem too good. Be True, powered by our distrust of authority and unseen forces. Momo is our stranger danger tale, a modern banshee whose scream travels through Wi-Fi signals. Lavender Town Syndrome is a story about cursed music, a high-tech version of the Pied Piper song, luring children to their doom. And the SCP Foundation is our grand, modern pantheon, a meticulously organized bestiary of all the gods, demons, and trickster spirits that our collective imagination can conjure. These stories are a reflection of our contemporary anxieties. In an age of digital surveillance and corporate overreach, we create legends about shadowy men in black and secret organizations. In an era of social media and viral challenges, we tell stories about the dangers lurking in our own phones. In a world that often feels sterile, corporate, and meaningless, we invent a secret, magical, and terrifying reality hidden just beneath the surface. These are the myths we need right now. You recall one final mainstream. Historical fact: the invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg around 1440. It was a revolution that allowed for the mass production and dissemination of information, changing the world forever. It took knowledge out of the exclusive hands of the clergy and nobility and gave it to the masses. Terrifying early days of its revolution. Everyone now has a printing press in their pocket. Everyone can be a storyteller, a myth maker. And you've learned that the most effective legends are the ones that feel real. They use the aesthetics of authenticity, found footage, doctored photos, clinical reports, audio analysis to blur the line between fact and fiction. They are a game that we all tacitly agree to play, a collective suspension of disbelief. Historians debate whether the internet age, with its instant access to fact-checking and information, will ultimately lead to the death of folklore and superstition, or if it will simply create more potent and faster spreading forms of it. Based on your journey tonight, the answer seems clear. Our tools for creating and sharing stories have become infinitely more powerful, and our capacity for belief and our desire to believe in a world more interesting than our own remains as strong as ever. The digital campfire is burning brighter than ever before. We tell these stories not just because we are afraid of the dark, but because we are fascinated by it. We are drawn to the mystery, to the idea that there is more to the world than what we can see. These legends are a form of exploration, a way of mapping the uncharted territories of our own imagination. The soft hum of your computer is the only sound in the room now. A gentle electronic breathing that has been the soundtrack to our entire journey. The screen, filled with so many strange and unsettling images, now seems less like a window into a world of monsters and more like a mirror, reflecting our own fears, our own creativity, our own deep and abiding need to tell stories to each other in the dark. The journey through the haunted corners of the web is over today, and you are left not with a sense of fear, but with a quiet sense of wonder at the strange and beautiful and terrifying things that we create together. And so, the screen fades to black, but the stories, you know, will linger for just a little while longer in the quiet spaces of your mind. The legends of the digital age are not really out there in the wires and the code. They live inside of us now, nestled comfortably beside the older ghosts and the more ancient tales. They are a part of the long, unbroken chain of stories that we use to make sense of the vast and sometimes frightening darkness that surrounds our small, warm circle of light. But you are safe within that circle now. You are in your room, in your bed, and the only hum is the gentle whir of a fan. Or perhaps just the quiet sound of the house settling around you. The tall man has retreated to his digital forest. The yellow rooms have faded back into a simple, forgotten photograph, and the strange, contained things are secure behind their locked doors. They are only stories. And as you feel your breathing slow and your thoughts begin to drift and soften, at the edges, you can let them go. Allow the images to dissolve, the unsettling sounds to fade into silence, and let the gentle pull of sleep draw you down, away from the glow of the screen and into the simple, quiet peace of your own dreams.